The term bearded dragon refers to 8, arguably 10 species of lizards belonging to the genus Pagona. These cuties make great pets, as they are not only relatively easy reptiles to keep, but they often show a lot of personality through body language, such as head bobs, beard displays, arm waving, and a need to perch onto the top of objects. Beardies sometimes have the stigma of being a stinky animal to keep. This comes from their natural musk, a pheromone produced within their bodies and gradually spread via their femoral pores. The smell may build up if the terrarium is either too moist or the substrate needs changed. With proper care, the muskiness can become barely noticeable. This particular specimen is the pogonid equivalent of Clint Eastwood. Older than sliced bread, but still spunky and willing to throw hands. His exact age isn't known, but when we had adopted him, he was already a full-size adult lizard. About 16, maybe 17 years ago, my sister wanted to care for a reptile. I can't recall why a lizard specifically, but at the time I had a colubrid, a corn snake specifically, who was an excellent pet, so I imagined reptiles were already proving to be an excellent choice. My sister had shown herself to be very responsible with animals, and eventually a friend of hers had an adult beardy that they weren't able to care for anymore, and were offering to sell the lizard alongside its own 40-gallon terrarium, accessories included. They had named the beardy Vader, but now that he's outlived AOL, Blizzard, and Game Grumps, he fondly goes by Old Man V. Old Man V didn't always live alone. At one point he was cohabitated with a feisty and energetic female bearded named Liz. We adopted her from an ad in the paper, and the two got along very well. After a few hours of beard displays and head bobbing. Like V, her real age is also indeterminate, but she passed after a handful of very healthy and happy years. We had hoped to mate the two, but Liz was indecisive about being receptive. They would initiate certain courtship behaviors, but never really followed through with the baby make. When we were able to supervise, the twosome would frequently be let loose to roam and play around the house together. They would often attempt to lay claim to a higher perch than the other, bobbing their heads in triumphant declarations. Our family moved and traveled frequently, and the two lizards were often subject to being gently placed in temporary housing setups that were safe for travel, but separate from one another. Whenever they'd be reintroduced into their primary terrarium, they'd seem reassured at the presence of one another. During one of our moves, there was a point where we had to stop to sleep. I didn't trust the moving van or car to hold a healthy temperature range for the lizards or the snake I had at the time. Taking notes from Metal Gear 2, their temporary setups were placed within cardboard boxes and wheeled into the hotel room. Once in, their respective heating pads were plugged in and all was well, until a hairdryer proved to be just too much for our room, causing a surge for the entire hotel floor. Room service, being courteous and responsible, was fast to act to fix our problem. With said fast service, I was forced to quickly cover the small terrariums with a sheet and act natural, as if 3 large rectangles covered in sheets trailing several electrical cords into a wall wasn't anything to pay attention to. The hotel maintenance fella gave it a funny glance, but asked no questions. I can only assume he must have seen something more worrisome in another room that night. Aside from moving events, the Beardies were featured guests at my sister's elementary show and tells. At one point, a nearby pet store held a reptile showcase where he won a little sweet little ribbon type for his health and his aesthetic style pile. Though Old Man V is certainly in his twilight years, he has the heart of a mighty Australian beast. A beast who loves long hot baths and pooping in his own water dish.